One of the producers from Shark Tank gave me a call, and I was like, well, yeah, duh.
No matter what you do, no matter how smart you think you are, there's going to be a process that you have to go through. Just enjoy it.
It's really what business is. It's just, solving problems and moving on to the next thing.
You're listening to E-Commerce Uncensored with Kevin Manel and Jason Caruso.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us on another episode of E-Commerce Uncensored. This is episode 209. Kevin Manel, and I'm here with
Jason Caruso.
Today we're joined with Jason Woods from Kymera. And, this continues our kind of string of Shark Tank, people who were on Shark Tank, but he was on Shark Tank twice. And he got lit up on his first episode. And that was, you should go check it out. Season 5, episode 7. Go check that out. He took it hard in the Shark Tank. And then he decided to go back a few years later after he got hit. He took the advice from the Sharks and came back and kind of showed them up and then got a deal.
Yeah, really, actually, be honest with you, I was really surprised at how, I forgot to ask him, damn it, how big his business was. But he was really open. Like he really talked about his story from start to finish. And he was really easy to talk to. And you ask him a question and he just, you didn't have to ask him anything else. He told you everything.
Yeah, really good guy. Really cool story. So here it is, our interview with Jason Woods from Kymera. Hey, Jason, thank you so much for being on today. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Great to be here.
So before we got on, we started talking about new toys and things. And your product is a really cool toy that I'd love to have. But you've been at this for quite some time. Why don't you kind of just take us back to when you first had this idea and how you first began to develop this idea for the Kymera, which is, you describe what it is, like a personalized jet ski type thing.
Yeah, so Kymera in its current form is basically the smallest, lightest, most compact electric propulsion system for the water. So basically what the goal of Kymera was to build something that would make the water more accessible, is what we were trying to accomplish. We wanted to build something that you could put in your car and be able to pull out and just go get on the water and make it really easy. We wanted to get rid of the trailer and the truck and the insurance and the gas and all the crazy stuff that goes along with owning a boat. And it the story started a long time ago, but yeah, that's kind of what the end dream was to make it more accessible.
So then what the hell is that 7-foot thing doing back there?
Oh yeah, that's a couple of the old ones. So
okay, because that ain't fitting in my car.
You'd be surprised. You can fit 2 full systems in the back of a Passat with the seats down.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to get it not only small enough, because it's it's usually a foot or 2 shorter than a small kayak. So it will fit in all the kayak roof racks and all that kind of stuff. If you drive a Mini or something, you could still get it on the roof kind of deal. But it's 70 pounds with a battery in it, so you can still pick it up and move it around. And if you pull the battery out, you're looking more like 40 pounds. So it's very portable. It's very easy to move around, and then it's just rechargeable. So it makes it really easy. Very low maintenance, that kind of stuff. So the idea was to make it the simplest, easiest thing, and it turns out that it's really hard to make the simplest, easiest thing that can do what it does. So
what did that process look like? How do you go? Because I've never seen this before, and it seems like one of those things that I should have seen. So can you walk us through a little bit about that, that process? Because from conception to reality, is that right? But how do you go from thinking this thing up to then getting it actually on the water where somebody can use it?
Yeah, it goes back a long way. So, I was very lucky. I got into the prototype Bill and Melinda Gates School. So it's New Technology High School. So it was kind of the first of its kind. It was based on a business model. So everything we were doing was project based, and it was much more applied learning type of thing. So it was interesting. It was a very different way of going about it. But the big thing is you had to basically finish your first year of college by the time you graduated. It's pretty much the way it went. So I took on Battlebots, which was the cool thing back at that time. So went and competed at Battlebots, and after I went there, I just kind of realized that what I wanted to do was build things. I just was surrounded by all these amazing brilliant people from all these crazy backgrounds, everything from rocket scientists on down. And I said, that's what I want to do. So after that, I got into submersible robotics, was my first company. And then I was building small compact underwater inspection class ROVs. And then very quickly got knocked off by a Malaysian company and realized that all this technology I created was not going to be viable to, for that application. And I said about, okay, I want to take all of this stuff I've learned from building submersible robots, and I want to apply it to something with a wider consumer base. So having owned a boat at that point, I realized, it literally came down to one day I was up at the lake and I was sitting on a park bench and I'm looking out at the lake, and there's 300 people that have driven an hour to be at the lake. And you look out at the water, and the whole way across the lake, there's 2 boats on the water. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and it's like, rule 1, you got to identify your market, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm going, there's 300 people that drove all the way up here to sit and look at the lake. It's ridiculous. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
So,
I went to school for something similar that you did. It was called communications. It was probably like about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew.
Yeah, you guys are on
just
the
as
same
smart as you.
wavelength. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are understanding each other.
Right. Exactly.
well, yeah, I mean, the problem is that when you become really heavily biased in one direction, it makes you weaker in other areas, right? So like, I'm much better at, locking myself in a dark room and working on mechanical things for long periods of time, rather than being able to communicate that idea to the masses, to be able to get that product out there. That's probably why it took so long to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised, man. Like, I think even us as marketers, like that's what Kevin and I do. We are marketers. Even us, there's still a process you go through to figure out the right messaging, the right tone, exactly who you're going to deliver it to. I mean, it's not, even for people who do this like for a living, it's not as easy as it sounds, right? Like, it's very difficult to figure out the messaging, to figure out the angle, to figure out that kind of stuff.
Right.
So don't feel so bad. I mean, we fail most of the time. Like, it's the truth.
Yeah, it's just tough, that jump from getting the vision that you have in your head. I'm sitting there on this park bench looking out at 300 people, and I'm like, how do I get these people to see the vision of access to the water in a different way? That's the tough part. But at that point in time, that's not what I was thinking about. I was just focused on the challenge of, can it be done? And at that point, nothing like it had ever been done. Something that's small enough to fit in a car, something that's light enough to pick up and carry, that people could just bring up to the lake and pull out and go ride around on. That was fantasy land. That was magic at that point. So, that became the focus, was, can I accomplish this vision? Can I mechanically make it work? And then I figured, that if you build the better mousetrap, they'll beat the path to your doorway after all. So I just assumed it would happen. Yeah, spoiler alert, the world's not quite that simple, but yeah, that was kind of the genesis. Was, I had a background in robotics and, submersible technology, that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to apply it to broad spectrum. And having owned a boat at that point, I knew what a pain in the neck it was, and there was a real problem to be solved. So that's kind of how I got started on it.
I'm sure Kevin has something to say, but one thing I want to say before he does, we have a client of ours who is on track to do 8 figures right this year. And they came to us, they were doing about a mil, and they said the same thing. Like, they actually invented this product, and like, they all sat around the computer when they launched their website, and they were like so excited because they thought like the website wasn't going to be able to handle all the sales that they got. And they turned the website on, and I remember them telling the story. I was like, yeah, it was like crickets. And I'm sure that's what you experienced, right? Like, it's like the same kind of thing. Is you have this thing, you're so excited about it, you get it out there, and it's like nothing.
It was kind of worse than that. So I mean, from that point, I started grinding, right? I started working on this thing. I got, I'm working a full-time job, working 60 hours a week, to pay the bills. And I'm working on this thing in the background, and I work on it. I build all these different revisions, and it started out gas powered, because at that point, batteries just didn't exist to make this thing possible. And then I finally get something gas powered that worked. And then the EPA changed all the emissions regulations and made it impossible. So that was unfortunate. And then, right about the time I started working, batteries started getting better, and I started building electric versions. And then I got that to where it worked. And I got to work and I'm like, ta-da. Then the crickets came, right? Then, I mean, I literally had no idea what to do now. I'm like, I thought the skies would open and that money would just be pouring in the door and that this thing would just solve itself, and that, you know, some big companies obviously going to swoop in and, you know, want this thing, right? Like it's going to solve itself. Yeah, it didn't happen. So it sat for a while and I didn't really know what to do. And just kind of on a whim, I kind of just wrote something up and I sent it over to an online, you know, tech blog article. You know, I sent it over to Gizmag, I think was the first one that picked it up. And yeah, they took it and they ran with it. You know, they put the story together and they got my story, you know, that I had been working on this thing for quite a bit of time at that point, and that it was built in a garage, and, you know, it's very much the American entrepreneur dream kind of thing. And it was kind of, I had, you know, a couple of clips of cool video of this thing doing something interesting. And yeah, I was like, great, at least it's out there, you know, at least someone cared. And then the phone started ringing, and it was interesting, like just things I had not thought about, you know, rescue operators and that kind of stuff. They were like, hey, this thing's pretty interesting. And then one fateful day, I get a call from what I thought was a scammer calling me to tell me that I had won the big prize, that I had won the Popular Science Invention of the Year award. And I'm going, yeah, right. And I've got to send some money to a sheik in Dubai, right? Like, where's the punchline? And no, it turns out they actually saw this story and thought it was really cool, and they decided to, out of the blue, you know, award me this Popular Science Award. So it got in Popular Science magazine. And that's really kind of where it started to snowball. You know, that's where I started to really get some exposure and a lot of interest. Of course, I had no idea what to do with it, you know, so I built this one thing in my garage, which does not a company make, which does not manufacture and create. And I created all this interest. You know, there was a ton of interest in people that wanted to know more, wanted to, you know, get their hands on one, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, still didn't know how to go to the next step. Like I can build this thing now, but I have no idea how to raise money. You know, I've worked in business, but I've not created a business, and we're not talking about a small business here, you know, which didn't occur to me when I took on this challenge of what it would take to be able to make it a business. Because it's a large, expensive product, and the cash carry and all the overhead and all the tooling involved is, you know, you're talking millions of dollars to be able to get the thing up and off the ground. So yeah, at that point, I knew there was interest, I knew there was potential, but yeah, didn't really know where the next steps were from that point. But yeah.
So it basically just started with you just deciding one day to write an article about this thing and just and shooting it out to a couple people, and that's where it all kind of started.
Literally just threw it over the fence. Yeah, and just didn't expect anything out of it. And then, you know, once that first article came out, there was a couple others that kind of picked up on it and then wrote an article about it. But it really was that when it got published in Popular Science magazine, that's where it really kind of went. And all of a sudden, you know, all this crazy stuff started to happen. And I don't know, it was probably like a year after that, maybe, that I got a fateful call from a producer, you know, and asked me, you know, would you like to be on Shark Tank? And again, I'm thinking this has got to be a scam, right? And no, it turns out it absolutely was. It was one of the producers from Shark Tank gave me a call, and I was like, well, yeah, duh. Like, of course, right? Because now I can solve all my problems. I just got to go get on Shark Tank. And, you know, that's basically like a game show, right? Like, you just get a giant check at the end and all your problems are solved. Yeah, something like that.
So this is, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, it turns out that they found me late. So we started the process and did all the paperwork and everything, but they didn't have time to get me in for that season. So, you know, ended up rolling to the next season, and just a long period of not knowing. You know, at that point, you're just kind of like waited on bated breath. Is this going to happen? And it was a full year before, you know, we found out that was actually going to happen. And Shark Tank's pretty crazy because it's very much jump and run. You know, you never know. It's very much, you know, you're accepted, but you might not be accepted, and you don't really know until basically the day you leave that you're going to get to go. And it just so happened the day I had to leave was my brother's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, no kidding. I literally had to walk as soon as the ceremony was done. I had to get straight in a car and, you know, skip the reception and go straight get on a plane to go to Shark Tank. So that was pretty rough, and it's tough because they tell you straight up from the beginning. It's like, you may not get to go. And if you get to go, you may not get to pitch. And if you get to pitch, that pitch may not be shown. So it's a very, it's a lot of risk, and you're really putting yourself out there. And it is far and away that lead up. I mean, because it's been a year of build up, right? And you've built this up in your head to be just this monumental, like, this is it. This is the only opportunity you're ever going to get. And you're coming from a place where you've only ever known, positive feedback. Everyone who's ever seen it just thinks it's great. And so you're built up on this pedestal, and you've got all these nerves built up from a long period of waiting. And then you get there, and it's very, it's very stressful, like leading up to this. And, obviously I'm not the business guy. I'm just the guy who's got, this one thing I built, and it's pretty cool. And I think there's a market for it. So pitching with no sales.
Right.
I mean, I'd watched every single episode, so I knew I was walking into a difficult situation, but I figured it was cool enough to offset. And everyone had told me how great I am for so long that I was convinced of such things. And
I can't even imagine the stress behind the last one we had on said the same thing. It's like, you never know when you're going to go on, maybe not, all this whole thing.
Right. You're going to go, and then you're not going to go.
Then you're finally in the green room, and they're like, okay, you're going to go on. And then they push you out onto the stage, and to have all that built up. And man, I watched that episode earlier today, and that was rough. So that,
yeah, I mean, what you don't see is I'm actually the very first person to pitch for the season too. So I'm literally 1-1 of that season, and they got to get their warm up in, right? Like, you need a good punching bag to get things started. They know they've got another 100 pitches they're going to have to listen to. So, let's knock this kid down a couple pegs. And yeah, I mean, one of the craziest things is, like, when you're standing at those doors, man, I'll tell you, you're sitting there and you're waiting, and you're trying to, because I'm sure you've probably heard it before, but basically the first 60 seconds is rehearsed. Like, so you've got to be able to deliver those first 60 seconds, like, who I am, because they really don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you. So you've got to be able to deliver, who I am, where I'm from, what I'm looking for. You got to get that out. And you'll usually see them writing that down, because that is the first time they're getting into that information. So you're trying to keep all your lines straight in your head. Your nerves are through the roof, where you're standing behind that door and waiting for them to open it. Then you walk through the door, and you hit the carpet, and there's a mark on the carpet. And because I was everyone has to stand on that mark quietly, right? Where they get all the establishing shots. That's the longest couple
TV,
minutes.
right? It's TV. Right.
It's brutal, because you got to just stand there silently and stare at each other. And they're going to say go at some point in time, and you've got to just deliver these lines. And it's just, your heart's in your throat, and you got to try to talk, and you can't breathe. And
just look like you're thinking, and you're going to throw up in a few minutes. Just stand there like that.
Yeah, but it's, like, part of it's involuntary, right? Because, like, your heart rate is just pounding out of your chest, and you're trying to stand there and look like you're calm and good, but you're just dying on the inside, kind of thing. And because I was the very first person, it was a really long time I had to stand there, and your nerves are just through the roof. And I think that was probably the toughest part. It was that just stand there, stare each other down kind of thing. But so yeah, I mean, they say go, and I start spitting my lines, and I'm just assuming as long as I get these lines out, they're gonna just take one look at this thing and just be like, here, take my money. And yeah, and then I proceed to get the beat down of a lifetime. And wow, yeah, it was brutal, and it was even more brutal than what you see on TV. Because it goes on for like 45 minutes or something, but in reality, and it gets cut down to 5.
They were so hung up on that, like, that you had been working on this for like 10 years and hadn't had any sales. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, the dude built a jet ski for God's sakes, from scratch. Like,
you can carry around. Yeah, I mean, that's electric. And
there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, it's not a widget. It's not a pocket paper clip. Handy dandy XYZ. It's real technology. And it was very, very cutting edge at that point in time. And I tried to explain that I had built carbon fiber ones at that point, but they're very, very expensive. I mean, just the hull cost a couple $1,000. You can make them one at a time. And they're going, why haven't you sold one? And I haven't sold one because just the hull, just the body of the thing cost a couple $1,000s to make. And they're incredibly labor intensive, and they're very fragile. And the whole idea was to build it rotomolded. I wanted to make it like a kayak. So a plastic body, super durable with inserts in it. It drops the cost orders of magnitude and makes them really easy to assemble. Like I wanted to go heavy tooling on the front end so you can make your parts very inexpensively and have something that's very durable and robust. And yeah, no sales equals get out of here.
So this sounds all really interesting, Jay. But is that a Travis Matthew shirt that I see you wearing there?
I don't know.
Is that what that is? That's a golf shirt.
Oh,
Are you a
God.
golfer?
My in-laws bought it for me.
Okay, so you're not a golfer then.
No, it's
Oh,
takes
jeez.
time, man.
We just put a simulator in our office, Kevin and I.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. Right. Like
Yeah,
the
no, my father-in-law is always trying to get me out there. Like I'm so pressed for time, obviously, because I'm just, and I have 3 little girls at home. We had 3 daughters in less than 2 years. Surprise twins.
So,
I was wondering that too, because you had your fiance on Shark Tank. So,
yeah. So we weren't even married yet. Yeah. I'm like, hey, honey, let's go do a team building activity. And trust me, if
you can get through that.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you get through Shark Tank together, then you definitely will be able to stick together. So, luckily that trauma was good training for difficulties ahead. But yeah, so, she was there with me. We got a good beat down, and then we immediately walked out there and went straight to Disneyland. So yeah,
so what happened after that though? I mean, you got some exposure, right? So I'm sure things started changing a little bit, right?
Yeah. So, then I thought that was the tough part. And then the tough part is it's actually like 9 months before it airs and you can't talk to anybody about it. So you just got to sit and stew and wonder and worry, that you just got the beat down of a lifetime, and how are they going to edit this? And so 9 months later, you can't tell anybody, hey, by the way, I got my head chopped off. So everyone's super excited, obviously, that knew that you went, because, you walked out of your brother's wedding. You had to give him some kind of reason why you were leaving. And yeah, man, it was brutal.
So you couldn't even tell people at the wedding that you were going? I guess not, right? You couldn't tell me why you were leaving the wedding.
I mean, my immediate family, I told where I was going, but, I couldn't tell them anything specific about, how it was going to play out or any of the results and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, obviously I had to tell them, I had to give them a good reason why I was walking out of this wedding. So, and I had their blessing to go and do it, because they knew how long and how hard I'd been working on this thing. And, everyone was excited about it, obviously. And then the fateful night comes, and, I was still optimistic. Even knowing what had happened, I was still optimistic that, I had said my piece, and I had said what I was supposed to say, and it just didn't work out. But, I was hopeful still. And, it turns out sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need, kind of deal. And come to find out that if you go on Shark Tank and you get an utter beatdown, but the people watching like what you created, turns out that's actually a good thing. Like the emotion that people had, I probably had twice the outpouring of response, just because people were so like, hey, wait a minute, I don't agree with you. Like, I really like that idea. And like, you just, you missed that one, kind of thing. So the outpouring of response we had was ridiculous. I mean, we had offers, getting poured in better than what I was asking for in Shark Tank immediately. I probably had, a dozen offers sitting on my desk, within a week of it airing. So at that point, it became a matter of, all right, great. Now, which one makes the most sense? And at that point, I had offers, some of them, were great. Some of them were not as great, but at the end of the day, what do I really need? And I had to do a lot of introspection and, like, what is missing here? And what was missing was the business, right? Like I knew that I'm very talented. I'm very good at solving problems in a very technical kind of way, but I'm not the business guy. So the winner, was Adam Majeski, who came in, my still partner, who he not only had he had a good offer, but it was more, he had the plan. He had a strategy of like, here's what you're doing, and here's how we could take it from X, Y to Z, and here's what I bring to the table. And I just went, yeah, I just the team value that he brought to it was fantastic. And that's really kind of where we got started. It's kind of because he and I probably got started, 2-3 weeks after Shark Tank aired, and started working together, and he started bringing people in, and that's when things really started getting busy. And
then wait, okay, so this is where I have to question your mental, just like you went back on Shark Tank after all this craziness, because most people after they go on Shark Tank, at least the ones that we've spoken to, and actually one of our clients was just didn't make it, but they were going through the process. It's crazy, right? Like you said, like you think you're on, then you're off, and then they were just kidding, and now they're serious, and then we'll go back on. Like, why would you go through that again?
Well, I mean, they keep track of you, right? So they follow up with you and they want to know how you're doing and, you know, kind of where you're at and all that kind of stuff, you know, because it's part of their story. But very, very few people ever get a chance to get on, much less get on twice. And obviously I didn't want to go back. Like it was not on my bucket list of things to do. But the reality is that we were a very rare exception to the rule. You know, we went on Shark Tank and got the beatdown of a lifetime and refused to die, you know. And when we started coming out, you know, at that point it had been, you know, 8, 9, 10 months after it had aired. So, I mean, that's probably like a year and a half after we filmed, you know, and we had already done, you know, $1 million in sales that year, you know, to date for that year. And they went, wait a minute, like you're supposed to have crawled in a hole and died by now. Like, why are you still alive? And no, we were doing quite well. And my family definitely would ask me that question a couple hundred times, like, why in the heck would you want to go do that again? But you know, the reality is that it's like I told the producers, and I think that's the reason they ultimately wanted me back, is because I think the story that needed to be told is that I was actually very thankful. I was actually very thankful that I got the beat down that I did. As brutal as it was, they were right, you know, and that was the thing that caught them off guard, is that I wasn't angry about it. I wasn't upset about it. Like, I was actually very thankful that they kicked me right in the head, and it caused me to wake up, and it led me to the right people, and it caused me to acknowledge that I'm not the business guy. Like, that's not what I do. And that, you know, you need to put a team together and you need to find some people. And then they brought me the people I needed. So, you know, it was mostly a thank you. And yeah, by the way, we're getting after it now. So we've got business, and this thing is really happening, and we were able to find money elsewhere. But hey, I want to give you an opportunity to get in on it because, you know, you guys helped me get here. So
yeah, I had a similar thing with my ex-business partner. She sued me. I lost everything, lost my house, lost everything. I mean, everything. I mean, I couldn't feed my 1-year-old. Now my dog is going crazy because one of the kids are at the front door. But I lost everything. And I made amends with her, and everybody in my family's like, what are you, nuts? Yeah. But then, like I said, like, you know, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's like I was so thankful that happened. I mean, in the moment I was crying because I couldn't feed my 1-year-old son. But like, looking back, if that didn't happen, you know, I wouldn't have created, you know, whatever Kevin and I are creating right now, you know, a couple, you know, multi-million-dollar info product business, which we don't have to ship anything. Yeah, I mean, mostly profit, right? And we have an agency, we have this podcast, like all those things would not have happened had I stayed with her. And it's just amazing how sometimes, at least in your business life, and I guess in all aspects of life, where things happen where at the time they feel like the end of the world, but when you look back, it was like the catalyst to where you are today. And you know, when I talk to people just starting out with their businesses, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, just enjoy the process and accept the ups and downs, because there's going to be, no matter what you do, no matter how smart you think you are, there's going to be a process that you have to go through. Just enjoy it, because it'll just at the end of it, you know, you'll realize that you weren't going to get where you were if you didn't have those ups and downs, you know?
Absolutely. Like, where does strength come from? You know, like, to me, strength only comes from pain. You know, like it's the things you've survived that bring you the strength. And it's very difficult in the moment to be aware of that and to understand it's part of the process. And it's funny, a buddy of mine who's a Navy SEAL, you know, I was joking with him about, you know, because swimming in the ocean and like how tough they are, and they, you know, they don't mind the cold water. He leans over to me and goes, you know what? The reality is we hate cold water more than anybody because we're in it all the time. We just learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that really stuck with me, because that's really, for me, what it's about, because I'm uncomfortable all the time, but I've just learned to be okay with it, you know, and that's kind of what it was. And going back to Shark Tank was part of that, you know, acknowledging, you know, kind of closing that loop. You know, I didn't want to, if I had the opportunity to not leave it the way that I did, and to come back and to, you know, hopefully have a different outcome, and to show, hey, that I didn't die and that we went on and we're being successful. that's all upside to me, just put aside the emotion and grow from it. That's all you can do, because that's really what business is just, solving problems and moving on to the next thing,
Yeah,
Did you get an offer? Sorry.
No, I was gonna talk about your first episode. I know Mark Cuban had some, pretty nasty words to say about you being an entrepreneur, but I think, those words kind of made sense when the fact that you just being an entrepreneur is about knowing what your strengths are, right? Like for me and Jason, we're partners. Like I know that I'm not a great salesperson, and as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to do everything yourself.
Right.
It seems to me like you, from that show, you took that. You're like, okay, I know I can build this shit. I know I can engineer it. I know I can make products.
Yeah.
Now I just need to find the business part of this. So that seems like that was the big takeaway that you had. And I think it's an important lesson.
And when I came back, I told Mark Cuban that straight up. Like, you're right. I was a entrepreneur. You're right. Like, I'm an inventor. Like, I'm an engineer. I'm a designer. Like, I'm very passionate about building things and creating things. But I'm not fired up about running the business, about creating, all of that isn't what my specialty is. And when I found Adam, he eats, sleeps, and breathes that stuff. Mechanically, like, no. Like, I only send him things if I want to see if they can be broken, is what it boils down to. But that's what you need. You need that dichotomy, and in learning, that's a big thing too I've seen in business, is that like when people are diatomic, you have a choice. Like, you can either be upset by that person because they're so different from you, or you learn to value their skill set. And I have huge respect for that difference, because he doesn't have the technical expertise. And a lot of time he just has to have faith in me because he doesn't understand the technical bits of it. Right. So he's just got to trust that I know what I'm doing. And the same thing with him. A lot of stuff, when we get into super high level business dealings and, mergers and like potential, like all this stuff is just, I just kind of glaze over, and it's not really my expertise, but I have to trust him, and his expertise. And if you can do that effectively, then you are much greater than the sum of the parts. So,
yeah, I mean, Kevin and I, this is not about us, but we can speak to that, right? Like he's like the executor and I'm like the ideas guy.
Yeah.
And, at first we tried to make each other, kind of be the other person, right? Like,
right.
And you realize that, you just got to do what you're good at inherently. Like Kevin is really good at handling client stuff. Me, you rely on me to handle client stuff is not going to get done. I'm going to be staring into the sky, trying to figure out what our next thing is going to be. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and we had problems from the beginning, Kevin used to get mad at me. like, are you going to do some work? I'm like, I am doing work, but it's just different work than you're doing.
Yeah, and our first business together was this agency, this marketing agency, and we go on these client meetings. You sit me in front of them, and I'm like, talking all this technical talk, and I'm telling them exactly the way things are going to be, and it's really not what they want to hear. They want to hear all the BS that Jason's going to come in and spew to them, and that's kind of like where the balance.
Kevin's like very honest, and he wants to tell them like
everybody tells us that.
All right,
everybody actually tells us that. Like after they start working with them, they're like, "Yeah, Jason, I know he was like the bullshitter, but I knew I could tell by you were actually going to take his bullshit and actually make it reality."
Absolutely. The funny thing is I had that exact situation in a previous career where I was teamed up with the sales guy, and I was very much the technical get it done execution guy. And he would go in and paint the pretty picture and sell them the dream. And then I'd be like, and here's how we translate that into reality.
Yeah,
absolutely. But we were super effective at it, but you got to take that personal inventory. Like, who am I and what am I good at, and really be critical of yourself. Luckily I had, Mark Cuban to do it for me. But
so you got an offer on the second time? I didn't watch it.
Yeah. So
I couldn't find your second episode on Hulu. It wasn't on for some reason. Season.
It's on Apple. You can find it on the Apple Store. But
so what happened there? Because I want to move on from Shark Tank and talk about the nuts and bolts of the business. But so what happened in that second one? You went back, but now okay. So let me understand this. You partnered up with Adam, right?
Yep.
And then you went on Shark Tank again and partnered up with Mark, I guess, or somebody else. Robert. Okay. Which he's like the nicest one of the four.
Exactly. Well, and the frustrating thing was he wasn't there for my first one. We had a guest shark that filled in for him, which was frustrating because he's very much the power sports guy. He was very much the guy I wanted to pitch to.
Right.
So that was what it was. But, it's a lot easier pitch when you come back and go, hey, year one, we're $1 million in sales, and we've tooled it all and all the risk has been mitigated and this thing works and it's in the field and, we're making money, and we
Right,
were
now, that's all they want, right? That's all they want. They want to know how you're going to now take this thing and make money with it. So, okay. So you got an offer from Robert. Now, I don't know if you can go into all this, but a couple of people that we had on about the Shark Tank is like, yeah, like you sign this deal and you think they're going to send you a check. And then they're like, no, send us all the paper. Like, I want to see all the business. We want to see all the numbers. We want to see all this stuff. And like, you don't get the check for like a while. Was that the same experience that you had?
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, it's like even people I know personally, right? Because they see you on Shark Tank and they see you get a deal and they just assume it's like you won a game show, right? They think you just get like a giant check at the end of the day and they just hand it to you and you walk out with a bunch of money. And a lot of people think that I get the money. Like wait, no, hold on. Like, I don't get anything. Okay. I'm still poor, right? Like, it has nothing to do with that. And all that money's already spent, PS. So it's, before you even get it, like, it's already been allocated for all these different things, but people don't really understand like how that works, that they're investing money in the business and it's going to be put towards these things so we can grow the business. Like, that's just lost on a lot of people watching it. They think, they don't understand the difference between the business being outright purchased, and just the whole thing is kind of over the heads of a lot of people. But yeah, no, there's due diligence that happens for sure, because, you go in there, it's a handshake deal. They're just, like I said, they don't have your background. They're not going to just write you a $500,000 check based on just a random conversation. I mean, that's any business, right? Like, you're going to sit down and you're going to multiple meetings. You're going to have all your financials reviewed, all that kind of stuff. That's all normal. So there's definitely a process that goes on afterward for sure.
Yeah, we're going through that right now with one of our clients, and a company actually that we own a piece of. The investors are coming in and they want to see everything, and then they want to know what you're going to do with their money, and they want to know where are you allocating all this money that they're about to give you. And they don't want to play like footsie. They want you to spend $100,000 a day on Facebook ads, right? Like, they're not like here to play like games, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, can we just put the money in the bank and just have it sit over there for a while? Make it look like we're making money, but no, they want it out.
I need my money to be making me money. That's how it goes. It's got to go. And I'm a pretty risk averse person. So, I try to be very cautious. And,
Kevin,
Yeah.
he doesn't like any risk. Zero. He's an entrepreneur, doesn't want any risk. Explain that to me.
I'm an engineer, like
different kinds of entrepreneurs.
Like,
Yeah.
I have margins for error, but not, I don't like to roll the dice. Like, it's very much got to be calculated out, and everything I'm doing has got to like have a strategy with 10 redundancies. It's just kind of baked into my nature. But yeah, it was great. We got back on, and the exposure that comes with being on a second time, and then you got all the repeats, and like, it's just,
and then you actually have something to sell that second time, really, right?
Imagine that. Actually having a product at that point. Yeah, it's kind of a different deal, because when you go on and you create all this demand, and if you can't service the demand you're creating, you're just creating competition.
Yeah.
You're just inviting people to come in to take you out. So luckily this thing is incredibly hard to build. Like, literally every component outside of the fasteners we've had to create from scratch. So good luck everybody else, but it's just a crazy venture to try to take on. But
yeah, have you read the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone?
Mm-mm.
You would have really done really well if you would have read that book before you got into this. And he basically says, like, just assume things are 10 times harder than you think they are. Like, just assume that everything is like 10 times more than what you think it is. And
I can confirm that theory, but I have to read the book. It is absolutely.
Yeah. In the book, it's funny because he's like, while you're planning, there's guys like me that are going to just take it away from you. So enough with the planning. He's like, just go do it. He's like, you have the best plan in the world. It doesn't mean it's going to work. You just got to go out and do it. The dude's nuts, but it's.
And that's a personality trait I see too, is like, they're planners and then there's non-planners. It's very rare to find someone that can do both, like that can have a plan and be willing to change it. Because that same personality type that likes to create a plan does not want the plan to change. Like, and then the crazy person who just wants to throw the dice everywhere doesn't want to plan at all. So
those same meetings I was talking about, where he just like go off and just say, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And then we get in the car and be like, dude, how the hell are we going to do all that?
Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're creating our own challenges, but those are also opportunities. So
Well, you gotta go like, cause like we would go in these sales calls and like Kevin is like talking like there's like no fluff. If it's like exactly what it is, like, no, guys, it's gonna suck for like the first. And I'm like, no, dude. Listen, we're gonna get you to $1 million in like 3 months. We're gonna like, so that's exactly what Kevin is like. He's like, he wants to plan everything. Gotta like think about it. We gotta talk about it. Like, I'm like, no, frig that. Let's just try to let's get it out there. Let's see what sticks. If it sticks, we'll scale it. If it doesn't, move on to something.
Because he's not going to be involved in that part of it.
Exactly. It's easy to sell the dream. Yeah. The whole under promise, over deliver thing, it doesn't sell much, but,
no, but you have to have those. You can't, and that's what this 10X rule is talking about. It's like, you can't, if you surround yourself with the average person, you're going to get average, right? Because you got to surround yourself with people that are thinking 10X more than you are, right? Like, be around billionaires, see how they work, right? Like, he's like, while you're thinking about, when you're thinking about how you can get the $30 book for $12, I'm going to figure out how one paragraph in that $30 book is going to make me $1 million, It's like two different ways of thinking, and it's a really good book. I mean, I think you'd probably do well if you pick that up.
It sounds like I've lived it, honestly. But yeah.
So talk to us about, okay, you got this deal with Robert. I'm assuming he's part of the business right now.
Can't go into a lot of detail as far as the relationship outside of Shark Tank, but yeah, okay. Things have gone well. So
okay, so you got Robert in there. He gave you, I'm going to just assume he gave you an offer. Okay. He wants you to spend his money. Like you said, it's all allocated, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Where do you then go from there? Because like I said, we're going through this process with one of our clients / businesses that we have. And they want to know, like, Facebook, how much. They want to know Google, how much. They want to know, and then they want to, and like I said, they don't want to play games. Where did you go from there? Because like, this thing, I haven't seen it on Facebook, and I'm wondering why I haven't seen it on Facebook. What is it?
Because we've literally never spent 1 cent on marketing. Like, we just have never needed to, because I mean, we've always been limited on capacity, is what it is. We're not trying to make any bigger splash than we can deliver. So we're limited on how many units we can build, and until we can get to the point where we have more units than we have sales, it doesn't make sense for us to be trying to create more interest type of thing. So
but then how does an investor see that as something that they can make money with? You know what I mean?
So it's taking the roadblocks out. You got to remember, so we have a physical product, right? And a lot of it is cash carry as far as inventory goes, because, just our batteries, 1 pallet of batteries is like $100,000, so, and they take, call it, 2 months, is the cycle time from, purchasing to actually getting it. So part of it is, just being able to have enough inventory, being able to have enough, cash on hand to be able to just carry that inventory, to be able to just have finished product ready to go. Because even to Shark Tank, everything we had shipped was prepaid, basically pre-ordered and delivered, some period after there. And the, times keep getting shorter in delivery, now we actually have units that we can ship, immediately kind of deal. But, this took a long time to build that up, because we were continuously reinvesting, and we went slow on purpose, because this isn't a little trinket, that you can just drop back in the mail and ship back. This is a big, heavy, expensive, it's got a big lithium battery in it. So there's a lot of shipping logistics involved in being able to get this thing kind of all over the world. We're on every inhabited continent at this point. So we've gone slow on purpose, because there's greater goals in what we're doing. The propulsion system that we're building has a lot bigger application than what it is in the form that it's in right now. So they definitely see the long game of what we're doing. We're building all of the base technology that propels, electric marine forward in the future. Because look around, like, who's doing it? Tesla's not building boats. Like, nobody's doing this. So we're really kind of pioneering that front. So they definitely see the long game, and we continue to improve and we continue to scale. I mean, we were only up 30% last year, but it was obviously kind of a difficult year. But yeah, it's kind of, we're growing at our own pace. We definitely can scale faster, but you don't want to get a bunch of stuff out there and then find out there was some problem that you didn't know about, and then have to do a recall or something like that.
Yeah, you got a lot to deal with. You got a safety. I mean, even just like shipping a battery these days, you gotta like, there's all these protocols just to get a stupid battery in the mail, right?
Much less a 30-pound lithium battery. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So you've got to become experts in hazardous material handlings and shipping. And, probably 80% of our business is international. So that's a whole tricky thing too, because like it's a lot of rental operators, that kind of stuff, because we realize that there's a really strong market for, resorts, they don't have the infrastructure, because it takes a ton of infrastructure to have a jet ski rental at your location, versus this thing is, as much infrastructure as a kayak. It's really pretty basic. As long as you've got a power outlet to recharge a battery, you can have this thing anywhere, and you can carry it down a beach without having a dock or anything. So that's where most of our business has been focused, and really just making sure that the core, systems in the product are just absolutely as bulletproof as you can get, and iterating and making things better. But yeah, making sure it's right before you start scaling it in a hardware product. It's kind of a different thing.
So do you guys? Sorry, go.
No, I was just gonna say, do orders come in online, or is it mostly, in-person sales kind of situation?
No, in person. Yeah, it's all online. Like I say, most of our sales are international, so we have distributors that we train in all the different countries that we're in, and then they basically handle the sales in those individual countries. So that was kind of what Adam came in with, was his strategy from the get-go, was that, if we bring in, we don't want to have to do the sales internally. So he was able to get people excited, people that had seen us, about the product. People wanted to buy the product, and, they want to get the opportunity to be able to sell the product, and they have distribution rights within their country. And, it works out well for us, because they become the sales force and the, service in those other countries that we otherwise couldn't service. So it's worked out pretty well.
And you get that thing on the water and people see it. I mean, it's like one of those things like, shit, like we want this thing. I mean, because it's crazy to me how many products there are out there that you just never hear of that are like just awesome friggin' products, Like I was watching your videos with this thing. I'm like, why haven't I seen this thing anywhere? This thing is awesome.
Yeah, the effect on the water is pretty remarkable. Like, it's like, because it's a bodyboard, I think, just because you don't even really see the board, you just see this person kind of flying across the water. I think it's just kind of like people just saw the Loch Ness monster. Like, it's just so weird and so different that they just have to come and ask questions. And it was crazy, because we did our first rental setup, and we're sitting there and nothing's really going on. No one knows we have it, right? They don't know it's at the rental place that we set up at. And we're like, okay, let's just have somebody go out and just do a lap in front of the beach. I mean, literally, it was like a wave. Like, as the board went by, you just saw people stand up from their beach chairs and literally just march over to the rental place and go, "What is that? Take my money." Like, I mean, it was the craziest thing to sit back and watch. That was probably the most fulfilling out of all of the years of working on this thing. To just see people's visceral reaction like that was pretty great. So, luckily it makes for pretty good videos. So marketing's, if you get it in the right place, it tends to go viral, whenever it gets posted somewhere. But yeah, we've just been trying to be true to the fundamentals and make sure what we're building is the best thing we can build, and, just scale it and do it right.
How fast does it go?
About 20 miles an hour.
Jesus.
Yeah, I totally be on board. Like, so do you have it at those stands? Like, I go to Aruba a lot, and they have like those stands all throughout the beach that like you can do parasailing, you could do like the pull behind raft and all those things. Those are the kind of places you're at?
Yeah, exactly. And there hasn't been a new thing in a long time, which is the interesting thing. Is like, if you go there, there's zip lining, and you go that whole brochure rack, and it's always the same, all the same things in just a different place. And then all of a sudden there's this new thing, and it's really interesting. It's a new experience, because there's really nothing like it. Like, people compare it to a jet ski, but it's closer to riding a bionic dolphin, I think, like, because you're in the water, and it's more like a slip and slide than a jet ski. Like, it was funny when I was first designing, people were like, "Wait a minute, you're going to build a jet ski boogie board? Like, aren't you going to get wet?" And I'm like, kind of the idea.
That's right.
Like, if you're trying to ride a jet ski and stay dry, you're doing it wrong. Just
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted it to be fun. And the cool thing about the bodyboard is it's super approachable for people. That's a lot of the feedback we get from like the activities guys, with the cruise lines. A lot of people, jet ski's kind of intimidating, paddleboard's kind of boring. This thing just kind of fills a fun in between, where you can just kind of go cruise around and be out on the water and have fun.
Are there a lot of like liabilities and insurance you need for something like that? Are you responsible for that kind of stuff?
So yeah, we have to carry product liability. I mean, basically on anything, but it's very reasonable. The nice thing is it feels much faster than it really is. And that was part of the reason we wanted a bodyboard. It's really easy to balance on, but it also, when you're that close to the water, the sense of speed is ridiculously exaggerated. It's the same thing. It's like, because we built surfboards and different things, with the drivetrain in it, it just doesn't feel the same. When you're that close to the water, it's a very different thing. So yeah, I mean, luckily, you think about it, a bicycle can go 20 miles an hour, and you're on the water. So it's not like a jet ski where you're doing 60 on 1,000-pound machine, you're doing 20 on something that you could pick up and carry, so it's a much safer, much, more user-friendly alternative, basically.
You guys are going to create a whole new category in like the X Games.
We've actually talked to them. Like, we've kind of gone round and round about different things, but and actually we got invited to go do, there was a huge convention in Las Vegas, and we got invited. They throw this huge party with like 10,000 people at it, and they do races every year. So they do like crazy, like Mario Kart type races, dirt bikes. They build like dirt tracks. This year they wanted to do World of Watercraft, and they literally built this giant arena out with an indoor aquatic racetrack through like this jungle scene. Wow. So a picture like a football field, and they filled it like 2 feet deep with dirt and built a lazy river basically all around inside to race these things around inside this tropical jungle themed party. Like, it was nuts. But
so can I buy one of those? Like right now, can I go on your website and buy one?
Yeah, Kymera.com.
And what are like the cost, the range of like what they cost?
They're about $3,000 with the full package.
That's much less than I thought it was going to be.
I saw you got some other things too now. You got like some motorized surfboards or something too?
Yeah, so they got delayed due to the last year of difficulty, obviously. But yeah, the great thing about what we're doing is that the propulsion system is designed to be able to put in any form factor you want. So basically, you can take this propulsion battery system and you can move it into, tune it down and put it in a kayak, and all of a sudden you've got basically the e-bike kayak, or you can put it in a surfboard and stand up on it. And we also built the twin drive jet ski, which is we call it the little monster because I think it's kind of nuts. It's taller than the bodyboard, but it's sort of a sit down, crouched twin jet drive, 30-mile-an-hour little beast. So, but yeah, that's the idea, is that eventually we can take and put this in any different form factor. But right now we're definitely just focusing on the bodyboard because, obviously you got to make sure you get your fundamentals right. And until you've saturated that market, the other stuff is, just kind of secondary, but definitely in the works as well.
Awesome.
I also saw before we go, I don't know how much longer we're going to go, but I'm curious about this Battlebot stuff that you do. You still do that? I mean, I know my son and we got the little remote control Battlebots, and he loves it. But it seems really cool. So how did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so like I say, all the way back in high school, it was all the rage back in Comedy Central days, and they said, the school said, hey, you got to come up with this big, crazy, thesis project you got to do to graduate. And I said, okay, well, let's do the craziest thing I can think of. And I was like, let's build a Battlebot. So, I spent 2 years, working and designing it, and then went to Treasure Island my senior year and immediately got my butt kicked. But yeah, I learned a ton. I came back the year after I graduated as well. And then it went off the air for a while. It came back again. And then I'd been out for 10 years or so. And then we got the phone call this year, with all the issues going on in the world, a lot of people couldn't make it. And there was an opportunity, and we said, hey, let's do it. Since, all I do is brushless motors and, controls and all that kind of stuff. It was a pretty easy crossover. And yeah, we got back a couple months ago. Actually, the finale for the season's coming up this Thursday. So
cool.
I don't know even what you're talking about, Kevin.
Battlebots? Come on.
You build these like huge remote control robots.
I know, but you were like, we were talking about the price of his bodyboard, and you just like switch gears. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of out of the blue.
Preface it, Kevin. Preface it.
Yeah.
I did. Well, we talked about bodybots earlier, or bodybots.
Yeah.
Battlebots earlier in the episode.
Bot and board. Yeah, I get that screwed up a lot these days. But yeah, it was kind of out of the blue. This summer we, with everything going on, we there was an opportunity to get back into it after 10 years out of it. And yeah, we put together, it's called Tracer. It's a 250-pound combat robot that actually uses Kymera drive motors as the weapon motors. So we took a bunch of old scrap Kymera parts and put them together into a big 250-pound fighting robot that you can watch on Discovery Channel.
Jesus, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
these are
we stay
cool.
busy. But
oh yeah, look at you guys have like a month back order. It looks like, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, right now is we're coming into spring, so this is definitely the busy ramp up time. There was a lot of pre-orders from over the winter kind of thing stacked up.
What color sells the most?
Ironically, white ones are the hardest to build, so we increased the price on them, and of course now that is twice as popular as any other color. So
I was going to tell you that's my favorite one.
Why are the white ones
the
hardest to build? What makes them different?
So it's something with the pigmentation of it, like because all rotomolding, all the holes are rotomolded, and rotomolding is kind of a black magic art more than it is a science, because just the pigments in the plastic make the parts run differently and they just go together differently. So the white ones, one, are harder to make, but they're a lot harder for us to get through the process clean, because we can't clean them up, right? Like we can't, like if there's a scratch or something on a regular hull, we can polish it out and fix it. We can't really do that on the white one. So they're a lot harder to build and a lot harder to put together. But yeah, so we thought increasing the price would reduce demand. That actually increased it. It's kind of the Peloton effect where they doubled the price and all of a sudden they became very popular. And it's like, it's kind of strange, but
yeah, I mean, because like, you never want to be at the middle of the pack. You either want to be the highest or you want to be the lowest. And
right.
if you're in the middle there, I think that's, it's not as good. Being at the top though is actually, I mean, there are studies that show that when you're the most expensive of what you're selling, people just look at it like it's just built better. And there are a lot of people out there, I heard a guy I was telling a story, I forgot the other day. I was watching Ridiculousness. You ever watch that show?
Oh yeah.
Funny. And they talked about how buying cheap means you buy twice. Like if you buy quality, you buy once. And it's so true. I've never thought about that because I'm like the cheap guy that tries to like get around. Like I bought my son like this quad from China, this cheap quad from China for $1,800. It lasted 3 days. And I went out and bought the $4,000 one from Yamaha because it got me aggravated. So I bought twice. It's true.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely a real effect, because with what we did, a lot of the value, because we're definitely at the low end of the price range, because there are other electric surfboards and stuff out there now that are in the $10,000-$12,000 range. And the reality is that we accomplished what we did through a lot of hard work and a lot of value engineering. The materials we use, the process we use, we invested very heavily on the tooling, because like I say, just the hulls made out of carbon fiber would cost, our cost was $2,000 on a hull. So, now we're selling the entire product for $3,000. That's the kind of value, proposition we put together. But for us, we never wanted this to be a rich guy toy. Like that wasn't the goal. I didn't want to build something, because you definitely could sell it, to people on yachts that just want toys. Like that's a thing. That is definitely a market and they will pay the price for it. But I wanted it to be wider range than that. I really wanted to build something that was accessible, and, it's not enough to just be electric. You've got to be able to bring, electric, green, all of the stuff you bring to it, but you got to be able to do it at a price point that makes sense, So
this whole thing has been like surviving on word of mouth, basically.
Oh yeah, literally.
Maybe things like that. Do you have any plans of taking it to the next level digitally, like Facebook ads, Google ads, the whole? Because I see this could be massive once you can, get it out to the masses.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this year we're really to the point now where we're starting to have inventory on hand, and we're in a cash position where we could, have the inventory to deliver to the demand, because that's our biggest concern. We know that the videos go viral, often when they're stolen and by someone and reused, they still go viral very easily. So we know that potential's there. It's just doing it strategically, because you don't want to create a bunch of demand that you can't supply to, kind of thing. So I think this year we'll be in the position to be able to do that, but the last 12 months have really just been, maintain, smart growth, and, don't do anything crazy until we kind of know where the world is. And, water sports market's doing great right now. Like literally boating industry across the, it's it's great social distancing. Get
Oh, yeah.
away from everybody and go out on the water. So it's great in that factor. But yeah, I think we got a pretty good handle on it now. And, I think, probably this summer, I think we'll be in a position to start to look that direction.
Are you guys, this is a personal question, so you can say no, I'm not answering it. But, oftentimes guys like you who build these things, they become their babies, right? Like, are you guys looking to exit? Is it something that you're looking to stay into like forever? Because it seems like, one of these big jet ski companies or one of these other kind of companies are just come in and swoop you guys up and like pretty much, all the hard work you've done is gone, but you guys can capitalize on the exit. So is that like your plan? I mean, like, cause it just seems like it makes sense, right? Like, doesn't
Oh yeah, it's just doing it at the right time and with the right, with the right company.
Right.
Talks have been ongoing. We've had many opportunities, many offers, but there's a certain level you have to get to, right? Like you prove that it can be built, and then you got to prove that it can be manufactured, and then you got to prove there's a market for it, and you got to prove, there's a margin, but that we've taken it. The risk is totally mitigated at this point. We know that there's a market. We know we can build this thing. Like we know what, all of the variables are known at this point. So now it's just a matter of, when does it go that way? Because is it my baby? Yes, but the honeymoon was over a long time ago. So
yeah.
it's not that. Like I say, for me, it was always about building the propulsion system. It was not one form factor. I think it's bigger than that, what we're really working on. And for me, I want to see it be successful, and I want the product to be successful. I want the investors to be successful. I want anyone that's been involved to come out ahead in this whole deal. So to me, it's just finding the right deal at the right time. But yeah, there's always ongoing discussions with various companies that we've talked to. There's a couple in the pipeline right now. We'll see how it goes. But definitely I would want to stay involved. I'd want, to be able to get some sort of employment contract and be able to continue to work on it. But yeah, the idea of it having, the resources that a giant company could bring to it to really pour gasoline on it. Yeah. It's just getting it to just that right position where they can just take it and just run with it. And I think we're real close. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, like I know the business minds out there, like they want you to validate a product like this. And to me, it's as easy as like, are there any other products like this that people buy? Not exactly, but something similar. Okay, jet ski, that's enough for me. Like, okay, there's a market there, so like I wouldn't even have thought twice about that. Just a different way of being on the water. I mean, how can anybody say there's not a market for that product?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, a lot of it was, it's always that next thing. They always want to see that next threshold. We've definitely seen offers, but, they like to try to make it a manufacturing company is kind of the go-to move we've seen recently. Like, oh, you're just a manufacturing company, so here's your basic manufacturing multiple. And it's like, wait, timeout.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, I got some patents and a lot of first mover advantage and a brand that you're just not valuing at all. So if that's the case, it's not the right deal. But someone who sees the value in it and is willing to share in the upside of it, there's a deal to be made. It's just a matter of timing, basically. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an awesome product, man. We wish you all the luck. I'm kind of annoyed I haven't seen this thing. Like it just keeps bothering me that I haven't seen this product before, because it's like a cool.
Yeah, it's really
product.
awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah, like I say, we've been trying to kind of fly under the radar a little bit while we kind of make sure that we're well positioned, because by the time it becomes a thing, you want to be in the right spot to be able to capitalize on it. So, we've been very fortunate. Like I say, Shark Tank's been great. Popular Science, all the media exposure and stuff we've had has been great. And, it's allowed us to just continue to focus on our core, principles of what we're doing. So,
and before we go, right, because we always talk about this, right? You always talk about entrepreneurs, like going into something like a child, right? And not knowing, it's better to be, I forgot what the saying is, but basically to go into it like being dumb, being green, right? Because my guess is if you knew what you know now, you wouldn't have gotten into this. But just from what you're saying. So what kind of advice would you give someone who is coming up with something that they're inventing, something that the world has never seen before? What kind of advice do you give someone like that who may be struggling or maybe like considering doing it? Because I'm sure you have some pretty good, you have a pretty good handle on what this is going to take, obviously. So what kind of advice would you give?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Go read the 10X book, because I mean that's exactly what it is. I mean, however long you think it's going to take, it's 10 times that. However you think it's going to cost, it's 10 times that. Like, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't do it if I knew. I'm glad I didn't know.
Yeah, right.
Like, I like that there's always that opportunity is just right around the corner. Like that, don't disvalue that, because like that gold nugget just like right out of reach is always a good carrot to keep you moving forward. And yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, which Elon talks about it a lot, is that like, you really, whatever you're going to do, you got to distill it down to the simplest question. Like what is the simplest way you can ask the question? And for me, you really have to have a clear focus on what you're trying to achieve, because there's always distractions. There's always things trying to lead you down the wrong path, right? Because like when I started this, I wanted to build, my value was I want it small, I want it compact, easy to move around, to access the water. I didn't say anything about it being the fastest thing. I didn't say I wanted to compete with jet skis, but that's where you get led, like to go try to build a bigger, heavier, more powerful thing, and just be true to what that initial vision was. Because if I had gone off and started doing other things, like it would never get there. But yeah, I think 90% of it is just persistence. And I think if there's anything to take away from my story, is that if you put your mind to it, it can be done, but no one said it was going to be easy. Like no one said it was going to be quick. And, you got to eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like it's got to be at your core that this is what I'm going to do, and nothing's going to stop me, because everything's probably going to try to stop you along the way.
17 years ago, I set out to live the laptops lifestyle. And 17 years later, a multi-million-dollar business, another agency. I still haven't figured that out yet. I mean, I still haven't figured that out. So I don't think I would have gotten into. I think I would have, maybe thought twice about that lifestyle 17 years ago, if I knew. But yeah.
But definitely that's something I've talked about with people too. Is it's like really being able to set long-term goals and short-term goals, to be able to have those moments to lean on, in the dark days, to go, but I checked that box and I checked that box, and it's moving. To be able to see that progress towards where you want to be is really critical. Something I probably don't do well enough is really, celebrating the victories, because I'm always on to that next problem, just pathologically. But yeah.
Yeah. They always say that, like the difference between a really successful person and a person that fails or is not successful is that the guy who's successful just didn't give up, right? It's not their brain. It's not their brain. I mean, Kevin and I are a perfect example of two people that aren't the smartest guys on the planet, that created a multi-million-dollar business in 1 year. You're on the other side of it. Like you're this like technical, really smart guy, and you didn't do it any faster than we did. But all we all did was just not give up. Really what it comes down to.
That's it. So one second.
Sounds like my dog. Barks at everything. I got kids coming to my window because I have the windows opened.
Man, of course, you get more mail than any day in history.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's just funny that it's true. Like the difference is that the guys, the people that are successful, they just were persistent and they didn't give up. And I think that's a really important.
Well, and I think that's kind of the survivor bias is what it's called, right? Because it's like you just assume that everyone that's successful, it's just that it worked out. And the reality is no one ever talks about, like, once you start to get some success, nobody wants to dwell on the horror, right? Like we want to kind of leave that in the past and move on to the success. But the reality is, I think we do a disservice to everyone when we don't talk about how painful it was and how brutal it was. And that's why I think Shark Tank, like that part of the story, I'm glad that people see that. I'm glad they get to see me get kicked in the face and then come back. Because I think that's really, there's something very human about that story, about overcoming adversity is really kind of, especially America. I mean, that's what this whole country was about people overcoming adversity and taking risk and, throwing it out there and coming back. And like your story about losing everything like that, just, it breaks my heart, man. Because that stuff, that's what kept me up at night for years, and I was very fortunate not to get to that point, but man, that is the hardest part when you're thinking about leaving your job and throwing it all to the wind to go chase this crazy dream. I mean, think about it. Like I left this 6-figure, very great job. I was in a great position, and I'm like, I'm going to go build electric jet boards. I mean, like that's crazy town. And the only thing that separates the crazy people from the geniuses is getting it done. It's it. Like, because if I had ever quit, if I'd ever stopped, I'd have just been that crazy guy that was going to build electric jet boards. Like, you know.
Yeah, it seems like you never even thought about quitting. I mean, even after the Shark Tank, where you walked out of there probably devastated with them like not loving your product, and you just kept going. I mean, did you ever have the thoughts of quitting, or did?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, like when you tell me I can't do something, now I have to do it. Unfortunately, like there definitely is an antagonistic part of my personality that, like, just the harder you push on me, the harder I got to push back. You know, like it's just
light bulb. Yeah, I mean that is right. He found 10,000 ways not to do it.
Well, and redirecting, right? So it's like when you get kicked in the teeth, you got all this anger and all this angst. Like you got to learn how to channel that, like, and use it to your advantage. Because like now that was my fuel for the next year, you know, or however long it was. I was like, all of that kick it in the rear I just got, like I'm going to use that to get busy, you know, because otherwise you can sit around and sulk about it, or you can prove them wrong, you know.
And you got to go back and tell them. That was awesome.
Right, I'm telling you,
like, you see, in retrospect, it makes total sense. At the time, it seemed insane, but
yeah, but you know, the thing is like every time, and it's funny because, and I don't mean to extend this longer. So I apologize in advance. I told you we try to stop it an hour. It just never happens.
No, I don't get to get it out very often. You know, this is a good therapy session.
Good. You know, every time you think you've achieved that thing, it's like if you don't have something else to go after, you know, and that's the irony of it all. Is like when you're first starting and you're not, you know, you like want to be the success story and you want to make all this money. It's like you don't realize that struggle is kind of what makes it, because if once you achieve that thing, if you don't then find some other thing, you're just going to give up. I mean, Kevin and I are going through this right now. We didn't tell you this, but we went from 0 to 2 million in 1 year. And now we're trying to figure out how to go to 2 million in the second year, right?
Stay at 2 million.
Because it's difficult, man. It's difficult to go from 2 million to 4 million and then 4 million to 6 million. It's just like, so I told you the 0 to 2 million story. I left out the other part of it because it's just only 2 months in. But the point is that you always need to have that thing, that carrot, that whatever you're chasing. Because if you don't, then you're not going to really have the desire to do it.
Yeah, and having a really clear vision, you know, like I for me, like my first one was just seeing this thing move, and I mean very clearly, like I want to see this thing with a person on it driving across, like that vision, that moment that I wanted to achieve, and then having multiple other moments stacked up ahead of time, right? So like as I check one off, I'm adding 3 more kind of deal. But you know, those are very satisfying when you put in that kind of time and you get to finally see that moment that you've waited to see, kind of thing. But yeah, just persistence and staying at it.
I always wanted to have 3 business partners in my life. I'm on my second one, so I wonder how this one's going to end.
Good luck with your next. When's that going to happen?
Actually, I guess Jared will be there.
It's all coming out now. Oh,
no, Kevin and I have. Yeah, but that's a whole nother story.
I put up with him. The story doesn't tell you how I, you know, pulled him out of the gutter, and he was, you know, I went through all the sites last.
I turned the job down when you offered it to me, buddy.
I saved him, and now look where he is.
Right.
You know,
right. He had a business for 13 years and took a paycheck for like 1 year. So yeah. So Kevin and I went completely different routes. I couldn't keep a job because I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. So I couldn't keep a job. Everybody thought I was an idiot because I couldn't keep a job. Kevin had the same job and didn't make any money. So he's an idiot for doing that. So it's like two different, it's like, it's 2 different paths, but you kind of end up in the same.
Now we got
spot.
shit going all in different directions.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. You know, and it being selective, you know, like choosing the right doors, you know, and, you know, be willing to be wrong, you know, and fail fast. You know, it's something in engineering that has a lot of value. You don't want to put a lot of time into something and take a long time to find out it doesn't work. You're way better off to just break it right now and find out and then fix the problem, you know. But
yeah, and fail forward too. That's another thing. It's like fail forward. It's like you don't look at it as like a failure. You just learn something. You learned how not to do it, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I mean, luckily on the engineering side, that's all we do is iterate, you know, and we're taking and refining things. And if you can translate that into real life too, you know, it definitely has a lot of value.
Awesome, man. You know, we wish you all the luck. I mean, you guys, it's interesting because we're going through this with one of our clients who invented something new, and there's like such parallels between like your business and their business, and you know, everybody. It's funny because everybody thinks they're special. They're not. We all go through the same shit, right? It's like,
just send them over to Mark Cuban. He'll start searching out.
You're not special. If you're going through some crap right now, you know, we all did. So don't, you know, pity parties and feeling bad for yourself is really like a waste of time. So
absolutely.
So
well, thank you so much, Jason. It's been awesome. Tell everybody where they can go. I know you said it earlier, but can you tell them again?
Spell it out though.
Yeah. Kymera.com, Kymera.com. And we've got all the stuff up there. It's ready to go.
Cool. Definitely go check that out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason, for being on.
Absolutely, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, Jason, another great interview. And I feel like, again, like we talked about it last week with the woman from Airbeds, you know, I feel like there's just so much potential there in that product. It's such a cool thing. And the fact that they're not really doing much digital marketing and no marketing at all. And they're doing really well. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, another good guy. Glad, you know, it's really nice to hear these products that you don't see anywhere. And I'm just like amazed that he's not doing marketing. It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I love this, loving hearing these stories. I said it after we got off to him. I was like, every one of these stories is different. Everybody has a different struggle. I guess the only consistent part is that there's always a struggle in some way or another. That's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is.
You want to mention it? You gonna mention it, Jason?
Oh, Facebook course. Go to e-commerce uncensored.
Forgot to mention it again.
e-commerceuncensored.com/truth. We just actually brought the price down a little bit. We were playing around with pricing. We kind of landed on a good price. So go check it out.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 209. As always, you can check us out at e-commerceuncensored.com. Talk to you guys real soon.
See you later.